tied 4-4. Let's remember, these youngsters, as we like to refer to them, have been here at least 10 years. Some of them, most of them, correct? Most of them have already submitted their fingerprints and gone through background checks 3 times. So that means they're working. Just listen to the business leaders of the world. I mean, I was so proud to read Microsoft's statement, right? Mm-hmm. They said, you got to come through us if you want to come after the dreamers. And all I suggest is there is a solution to it. But to put Jeff Sessions out there as the man who was the chief architect against any further immigration to the United States of America, if not other than Senator Jeff Sessions when he was in the Senate. And Don, the DREAM Act was passed in the House in November of 2010. And the Senate, 55 votes for cloture. Of course, Senator Sessions said no. So look, there is a way. But what Paul Ryan has to do, the Speaker, is stop talking about the values that he has and the principles that he has about immigration
and start actually putting his money where his mouth is, right? And doing some action. But listen, Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook's CEO, did a COO Sheryl Sandberg released a statement. Tim Cook released a statement today. You're talking about a business guy. Goldman Sachs, Disney, Bloomberg, Google, JP Morgan, on and on, saying that dreamers are our neighbors and they're our friends and they're our coworkers and this is their home. Very similar statements. But I've got to ask you this. You call this the president's most dangerous and damaging act yet. Explain why you say ending Daca is another step towards this administration openly endorsing, and this is you, white supremacy.
Here's why it is. He started his campaign, Don, by coming down those escalators saying Mexicans are murderers, rapists, and drug dealers, and we have to get rid of them. That's how he started. And let me just be clear. In American political vernacular, Mexican equates with Latino. Equates with being Colombian, Mexican, Puerto Rican, you name it. That's what he was really referring to. And so he is demonizing a complete community. Look at your conversation that you just had with the former governor of Arizona, the border. We have to protect. Don, 40% of the undocumented never crossed that border into the United States. Didn't even come from Latin America. Mm-hmm. They come from Ireland. They come from Poland. They come from other parts of the world. Why is always the focus on Latinos and where we come from, as though we were some damage to the country?
I sat next to someone, I sat next to a business leader at dinner this evening who said the exact same thing to me, that the focus has been on the southern border, but it's never from European countries, and they have workers who have visas and who come over and who are part of DACA and on and on. Representative, for the sake of time, I'm sorry I have to go. We'll have you back. We appreciate your time. Thank you so much. When we come back, the president focused on DACA tonight, but international power players are meeting to discuss world issues. Is it a problem that the U.S. doesn't have a seat at the table? Fareed Zakaria joins me to break it all down. That's next. President Trump tweeting tonight, ramping up the pressure on Congress over DACA. Let's discuss now this and a lot more with Fareed Zakaria, host of Fareed Zakaria GPS, right here on CNN. I want to get your reaction to the day's news. President Trump rescinding DACA, giving Congress 6 months to come up with some kind of a solution. What do you think?
It does seem like political signaling. I mean, in other words, there's no policy issue here. You're talking about a small group of people. You're talking about people who, as you know, your guests have pointed out, by no fault of their own, are in this situation. I mean, the book of Ezekiel in the Bible talks about not punishing children for the sins of their fathers. This is well established in Western morality and Western law. So why this? It's a political signal. It's a signal to base. It's a signal to a group of people. And I think, unfortunately, what is happening is Trump is no longer governing. You know, people don't even have noticed. The wall has not been built. NAFTA has not been rescinded. None of the things, that the trade war with China never happened. Obamacare is still in place. So what we have instead of policy are political signals. And it's a pretty cynical one, I think, because, as I say, it has almost no real world consequence other than to play with the emotions and fears and hopes of people on both sides of the.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I was trying to get to that with David Gergen earlier. I'm sure you heard me when I said I asked him if the decision was cowardly or not making a decision, that I will say it's weak. But basically saying the same thing that you said, that he's not governing. And I often wonder how to put myself in the shoes of a Trump supporter. and wonder how, well, what do you look at and say, well, a wall, Obamacare, I still have Obamacare. I thought I was going to get a little bit more money from taxes. No taxes. Talks about creating jobs. We all know jobs have been created, and it's starting with the Obama administration.
And
right?
that's the positive side. So let's even look at the negative side,
so
which
then
is
what do you say?
Where was that?
But you know what
punitive
cognitive
actions
dissonance
against China? Where was the punitive act? Nothing. Right? And fundamentally, where's the issue of your wages have not risen in 40 years? What is this guy doing to make that happen?
But he's blaming dreamers, which has nothing to do with...
As I say, it's a handful. It's such a small number that if some economist tells you that this is what is causing the depression of wages of American workers, they're just flat out lying. Yeah. No, this is a signal. And it's a signal to say, I can do something that a lot of people think is cruel because I can be tough on immigration. It's cheering people on his side of the aisle. But fundamentally, the problem with it is we have a president who is no longer interested in governing. He's interested in sending political signals, and we're 7 months into the presidency.
But don't you think those political signals, and we're going to have a bigger conversation about this, so if you're a person of color in this country, what is all of these decisions, what does this say to you? And we're not just talking about rhetoric, what you say on the campaign trail, what you say. These are actual policies that you're trying to put into place. Even, this is not an executive order by him. He's pawning it off on someone else. What does this say to you if you're not a white, specifically a white male American or just a white American?
I would hope that what it says, even if you are a white male American, is the presidency has always been, really since Abraham Lincoln, the hope and the greatest presidents have been those who have brought the country together, who have found a way to find some theme, some idea, some policy that somehow brings people together, somehow unites them, somehow transcends issues of race, ethnicity, gender. And here you have, it's really extraordinarily, in a country that is becoming more mixed and multicultural and has, all these diversities within it, you have somebody who's really trying to drive those differences forward, really trying to sharpen them. That's why
that's where he wins.
Well, Steve Bannon said, if the left keeps talking about identity, I say, bring it on. In other words, they want to sharpen those divides. And I kind of get it at a cynical political level, but I don't get it as president. When you're president, really, you would hope there would be some effort to transcend. And by the way, it would also be better politics. I mean, you and I have talked about this from the start. Had Donald Trump said, I'm going to be a different kind of president, neither left nor right, neither Republican, because I can do that. I'm going to talk about infrastructure. I'm going to talk about raising wages. I'm going to go after China. There was a whole new agenda where you could have said, my focus is just on working people, and I'm going to raise them. And instead, what you have is sort of third-rate Nixonian tactics of, trying to work this Southern strategy in a kind of newfound guise.
And you used to have the Friday news dump, and then you have the holiday news dump. Well, this happened. Remember, when the president said, "I'm going to start an investigation because President Obama wiretapped Trump Tower," which we all knew was a bunch of baloney, right? And now his own Justice Department has investigated and has found absolutely zero evidence. It got buried in the holiday. No evidence at all. It was just a complete, flat-out lie. Why are people not more outraged and upset by it?
What's the saddest thing to watch?
Why is this happening?
The saddest thing to watch with this president around the world is the way in which his words have lost any credibility. So the other day, when this recent North Korean crisis happens, the president of the United States tweets, we're thinking about stopping all trade with countries that do business with North Korea. Now, the plain meaning of that would be, we are going to shut down trade with China. Yeah. Shutting down trade with China, just to be clear, would cost America about 5% of its GDP. The Great Recession of 2007-8 cost us about 1% of GDP. So this would be a five-fold effect. But what was fascinating to me, nobody took it seriously. The Chinese didn't even bother to respond to the president of the United States threatening to shut down all trade. Because the feeling that the world has now, Donald Trump, he says these things, they mean nothing. He says he's going to attack North Korea, he doesn't do it. He says he's going to recognize Taiwan, he doesn't do it. He says he's going to abandon NAFTA, he doesn't do it. He says he's going to build a wall. And, you know, I can't remember a time in my life where the President of the United States' words have managed to evoke absolutely no reaction, neither fear, nor incredulity, nor hope, nothing.
Yeah.
The feeling is, you know, he's just, I mean, as I've said many times before, he's just bullshitting.
But yeah, what they're saying is consider the source.
Yeah.
Is what they're saying.
Yeah.
By the way, he's meeting with the Chinese president tomorrow, speaking with him.
Speaking with him, yeah.
Thank you, Fareed Zakaria. Always a pleasure. Don't miss Fareed Zakaria GPS Sundays, 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern. And when we come back, is President Trump sending a message to voters of color by ending Daca? Is it becoming a pattern? Welcome back, everyone. Today's Daca decision comes on the heels of the pardon